This is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster, and this is a quickie review of Star Trek Picard, Episode 3, 17 Seconds, which has a neat flashback back to 2381, I assume, the birth of Thad Riker, who, even though he died in Star Trek Picard, is alive in the Cillian universe, the Cillian Trek realms story, as of the Lucky Clerk and Fontana stories, because in Cilly Trek, you can actually bring back somebody that's dead. So he comes back in another form as a Q-like Cillian being, because he's both in and out of the universe, so he's alive in that universe. So here we have, which has nothing to do with Picard, technically. So we have a lot of soap opera stuff with Picard and Crusher explaining about Jack Crusher. There's sort of paralleling the stuff in Star Trek II with Carol Marcus and Kirk. Also, they do the Peter Preston thing later on, but they don't kill him with the other guy. Also, this episode. The episode reintroduces the changelings. There's a changeling on the ship, and a changeling on the planet, on the other ship. So played by one of the cast from Cillian Space. Awesome. Two changelings, and one of them gets to get beaten up by Raffi and Worf. That's kind of awesome. So the characters of Mike and Rich are getting beaten up. Sort of. I would say the guard guy is more critical vitriol, getting beaten up. He escapes and plants a bomb, escapes. But he is more that guy. So he's running around, critical vitriol. Then we have the Amanda Plummer's character is basically also him, because he's a General Chang from Star Trek VI, done up differently. Also, Vita Cola is the one that gets beat up. That's it. Vita Cola is the other changeling. He gets beat up by Worf and Raffi. But it's a different universe, so it's fine. It's not really him. You just say, it's a different one. It's not really him. So get away with that. So we have a cat and mouse game, all Wrath of Khan, and a couple of other TNG episodes too, and Nebula chasing in and out. They're using this portal device, and no one has yet mentioned in any of those reviews that they're ripping off the game Portal. They literally are ripping off another video game. They really like those. If I had done a video game, they'd be ripping mine off. Instead, they just borrow stuff from Cillian realms frequently. We have 7 confined to quarters. We have a really obviously evil security guard guy that's clearly one of the changelings. We have it's beat for beat stuff. It is a better episode than the previous two, because Jonathan Frakes directed it. And there's a Cillian Realms guy in it, or at least two changelings. It was an interesting interview with the Spilliers, who plays Picard's son. That's still kind of ambiguous when he took place. As an actor, he's 34, so the only way that works, that he's actually his correct age, which could be different, is that he was born during the second season of The Next Generation, and they just never mentioned it during The Next Generation. That could make sense, and they kind of implied that. There was all these other times where Picard was in danger on planets and stuff, and she mentions that. That's entirely conceivable that he could have been born in 2365, 34 years ago, and it's entirely possible. And he'd be in his 30s then. But if he was born later after Nemesis, it doesn't really add up. He would be in his 25, 26, which I guess you could have a 35-year-old playing a 25-year-old, but I think he's actually supposed to be from 2365. And if they change that in the memory alpha, that's fine. You can say that it's different, that it's after the generations, but before First Contact is when it happened. You could do that too. That would make it but Nemesis is a little too close. That's only like 24 or 25 years. It's confusing as to when he took place. Maybe he is also some sort of augment or changeling or something, because the captain guy kind of implies that as he gets wounded and he's dying in sickbay, and he says something cryptic about how did they find us or whatever. But you could take that to mean he was delirious because he did internal bleeding and stuff. Does beg the question, though, on Star Trek, even the prequel Discovery, internal bleeding, like wouldn't they have scanned him like with one of those scanner devices and noticed that? Yeah, they kind of didn't do that. And the medical stuff is increased in the time of Star Trek. They should have more, like they should be able to tricorder and go. Even in the original Star Trek 4, McCoy scans Chekhov's head and said the artery must be repaired. Sticks a little device on there, which is kind of magic, but even then, in 2286, 100 years, more than 130 years earlier, they had the technology to fix someone immediately, like like magic. So, yeah, why would anybody in sickbay have an issue in sickbay? Like, even on Next Generation, they were like, oh, this guy's a horrible cut on their head. Okay, it's gone. It's like, without device. The medical stuff kind of doesn't make sense. It's kind of like it's a throwback to the Wrath of Khan era, but even there, they would have had magical devices. So yeah, that's a little off. But yeah, and everyone seems to be like freaking out in the dark and stuff. I know they can light the set better, but they don't. I don't know why. At least they want to make it look like the Forbidden Planet, the Fallen Ones kind of look to it, which is fine. If they want to make it look like that, but yeah, I always lit the characters well in the bridge, even if the background was darker. Kind of as a contrast thing, you have to light the characters in contrast. Yeah, but yeah, a lot of talking softly and whispering in there was kind of annoying again. But as for that, it was fine. The flashback to Thad being born and Deanna Troy's. I guess they're on the Titan's bar on the Titan. I guess 10 forward version of the Titan in that scene. The other Titan, the Luna class one. So there's a Frakes isn't as overweight as he appeared to be in the one 3 years ago. But yeah, they've covered up him with this special uniform that he's got on. Probably a corset, I guess. Like a wrap in there, like Shatner used to do in the later episodes, including Generations. He was wearing a thing to make his stomach not stick out. But yeah, it's fine. It's not as bad as it's not bad. It's a little odd in places, but it's not bad. They're doing a fair job doing that. The Worf and Raffi stuff is better. You can see Michael Dorn chewing scenery, being the handler guy. Also, there's a lot of fake outs in the trailer. They've pretty much done all of the scenes from the trailer except the part about "This is the end, my friend." But they've done all the other scenes from the trailer in some way or another. And the part where there was a fake out last episode where they sort of grafted in the action that was going on with Worf fighting the Ferengi's goons and then the Ferengi, and made it look like he was fighting Raffi, but he wasn't. I think there's probably a Raffi sparring scene later on that's brief, but it's not the same scene. He's not fighting her. So they tricked you. Also, the scenes where the guys are fleeing the ship or mutinying or whatever, they're not. There's one guy, and he's a changeling. He's running around. Changeling renegade. Which is consistent with Starship Locations, Cillian Realms having a second Dominion War, which happened in the 2380s. It was an undercover sort of war, sort of like a Section 31 of the Dominion doing bad stuff. That happened. There could certainly be another one 20 years later. Why not? So that's entirely possible. I don't think it ties into Lower Decks at all, except that that's Riker and the Titan. So there's I guess that's pretty much the review. I mean, it works. It's fine. The 17 seconds refers to the turbo lift thing mirrored in the beginning scene, mentioned in the beginning scene, and there later, when Jack Crusher is wounded by the bad guy, they're trying to seal a deuterium leak. They called it tritium, but I think they meant deuterium, which is a real thing. But they gave it a different letter to make it sound different. Deuterium leak would have killed them instantly, probably, but yeah, or maybe not. Deuterium is just hydrogen. The kind of like heavy hydrogen, so they called it something else. It does make the question, how come the ship's sensors wouldn't detect that? They have all these sensors. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in this that was established before in other Star Trek, like the medical scenes, that they could do. I guess they're triaged and they're like underpowered, but they didn't explain that. Yeah, they're in the battle in the nebula and all that. Damage to the ship. And some of the damage to the ship from the ship being thrown at the ship isn't visible on the hull at this point. They did mess that up. Trek yards probably noticed that. They didn't show where the scratch is. They're just barely there. But yeah, other than that, yeah. So even in the Wrath of Khan, they did the ship model damage better. Of course, they used giant. Of course, that was back in the 80s when they used giant pieces of the set that they built and then sort of melted them with a blowtorch. But yes, because it was all models back then, back in the day. It was models until really Deep Space Nine started to use CG about halfway through. It was really models, which is kind of why they can't do a Deep Space Nine HD transfer to video, because it was all on video and the cameras and stuff. They'd have to redo all the effects, which would be a pain in the butt. Voyager as well, unfortunately. No, what they could do is just clean up the visuals, clean up the but yeah, you kind of want the grain though, don't you? I want to clean it up too much, because then it looks like those original Star Trek re-releases where they redid all the effects. They don't need to do that. That just throws it off. But it's charming to have the older effects. Just clean it up a little and release it high def. Anyway, so yeah.